All right, hello there, welcome. Tonight we're diving headfirst into the murky, often astonishingly weird underbelly of some of the world's most recognizable brands. These are the titans of industry, the jinglesmiths, the logo plasterers who've woven themselves so deeply into the fabric of our daily lives. You'd think they were practically family, but as with any family, especially the incredibly wealthy and slightly eccentric kind, there are secrets. Oh yes, secrets. They'd much rather you didn't poke around in, thank you very much. We're talking about the kind of truths that make their meticulously crafted PR campaigns look as flimsy as a politician's promise. Think of your favorite, most comforting brand, got it? Good. Now, imagine that brand has a hidden past, a slightly scandalous youth, or perhaps a current habit it's not too keen on publicizing. It's like discovering your mild-mannered accountant moonlights as a luchador, or that your calming chamomile tea is secretly plotting world domination. The point is, things are rarely as they seem on the glossy packaging. Coca-Cola once contained cocaine. McDonald's fries have over 15 ingredients. Let's uncover shocking truths that big brands never want you to know. It's a journey into the oops, did we say that out loud, file of corporate history. So prepare yourselves. We're about to pull back the curtain, not in a dramatic, theatrical way, but more like an annoyed stagehand who's had enough and just wants to show everyone what's really going on backstage. We'll look at the ingredients they prefer you didn't question, the historical footnotes they've tried to erase, and the sheer unadulterated audacity of some of their past and present practices. This isn't about hating brands, it's about knowing them, truly knowing them, and who knows, you might just learn something that makes your next shopping trip a little more discerning. Ah, Coca-Cola, the pause that refreshes, the taste of a generation, the official sponsor of Santa Claus's modern makeover. It's an icon, a global behemoth, a syrupy sweet symbol of capitalism, mostly. But before it became the ubiquitous red and white can of sugary goodness we know today, its early days were, shall we say, a bit more stimulating. And I mean that quite literally because, yes, the original formula for Coca-Cola, the one cooked up by pharmacist John Stith Pemberton in Atlanta back in 1886, had a rather energetic kick to it, thanks to a not insignificant amount of coca leaf extract. Now, Pemberton wasn't trying to start an international drug cartel from his pharmacy. No, he was marketing his concoction as a nerve tonic, a brain tonic, and a cure for pretty much everything from headaches to hysteria, impotence to indigestion. It was the Victorian era, after all, a time when patent medicines were all the rage, and many of them contained ingredients that would make a modern-day pharmacist's hair stand on end. Cocaine, derived from coca leaves, was widely available and even lauded for its supposed medicinal benefits. So, adding it to a sweet fizzy drink? Genius, or, incredibly problematic by today's standards. The original drink was actually an alcoholic beverage called Pemberton's French wine coca, inspired by Vin Mariani, a popular coca-infused wine from Europe. But when Atlanta and Fulton County enacted temperance legislation in 1886, Pemberton had to scramble. He reformulated his drink, removing the alcohol but keeping the coca, and mixing it with cola nut extract, hence Coca-Cola. The cola nut provided caffeine, and the coca leaf provided, cocaine. It was marketed as the temperance drink, which is quite the spin when you consider one of its key active ingredients. Imagine that. Feeling down because you can't have a beer? Try this instead. It'll really pick you up. Estimates vary, but early formulations of Coca-Cola are believed to have contained around 9 milligrams of cocaine per glass. To put that in perspective, it's a fraction of a recreational dose, but enough to provide a noticeable stimulating effect. This wasn't a hidden ingredient, it was part of the appeal. Advertisements from the era boasted of its invigorating properties, promising to relieve exhaustion and make the weary active and strong. It was the Red Bull of its day, if Red Bull also came with a side of potential addiction and a Schedule II drug classification. The early slogans were quite something. Coca-Cola revives and sustains. Sustains what, exactly? A mild dependency, perhaps? The marketing was aggressive and targeted everyone. It was positioned as a sophisticated drink, a healthy alternative, a pick-me-up for the tired businessman or the fatigued housewife. Imagine the scene. Darling, I'm feeling a bit run down after all that. Existing. Fetch me a glass of that delightful Coca-Cola, won't you? And for a while, it worked. Sales grew, the drink became popular, and nobody seemed too bothered by the little bit of pep in their step that came from the coca leaf. It was a different time, a time when adding narcotics to beverages was apparently just good business sense. However, as the 19th century turned into the 20th, public perception around cocaine began to shift dramatically. Concerns about addiction grew and racist fear-mongering linked cocaine use to crime, particularly among African Americans in the South. This put immense pressure on companies like Coca-Cola. The Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906 also loomed, requiring more transparency in labeling and cracking down on harmful ingredients. So by around 1903 to 1905, Coca-Cola, under new ownership by Asa Candler, quietly began the process of removing the active cocaine alkaloid from its coca leaf extract, eventually using spent or decocainized coca leaves to maintain the flavor profile without the psychoactive kick. Today, the Coca-Cola Company is understandably a bit coy about this particular chapter of its history. While they acknowledge the use of coca leaf extract, they emphasize that any psychoactive cocaine was removed early in the 20th century, and indeed a company in New Jersey, the Stepan Company, is still the only entity legally permitted to import coca leaves into the US, processing them to extract cocaine for medicinal purposes, yes, that's still a thing, and then selling the decocainized leaf material to Coca-Cola for flavoring. So a tiny non-narcotic piece of that original formula technically lives on. A ghostly reminder of a time when your soft drink came with a significantly harder edge. Ah, McDonald's fries. Those perfectly golden, suspiciously uniform and addictively salty sticks of potato-y goodness. They are, for many, the pinnacle of fast food achievement, the one item on the menu that rarely disappoints. You pull up to the drive-thru, you order your burger, your nuggets, whatever your particular vice may be, but the fries are non-negotiable. They are the crispy, salty glue holding the entire fast food universe together. But have you ever stopped to truly wonder, what makes them so McDonald's-y? Because it's not just potatoes, oil and salt, my friends. Oh no, that would be far too simple. If you were to make French fries at home, your ingredient list would likely be potatoes, oil, salt, maybe some pepper if you're feeling fancy. McDonald's ingredient list for their world-famous fries registered trademark, however, reads more like a chemistry experiment gone slightly awry, or at least gone very, very corporate. In the United States, for example, the list boasts an impressive or perhaps alarming number of components, often upwards of 15 depending on how you count the sub-ingredients in things like the oil. We're talking potatoes, yes, but also a cavalcade of oils, dextrose, sodium acid pyrophosphate, citric acid, dimethylpolysiloxane, and the ever-enigmatic natural beef flavor. Let's start with dextrose. That's a type of sugar. Why, you might ask, is there sugar on your savory French fries? Well, it's not primarily for taste, though it might contribute a subtle sweetness. Dextrose is often sprayed onto the cut potatoes to help them achieve that perfectly uniform golden brown color during frying. It essentially helps with the Maillard reaction, giving them that appealing visual consistency batch after batch, restaurant after restaurant across the globe. So that beautiful even tan isn't just good luck, it's good chemistry with a sugary assist. Then there's sodium acid pyrophosphate, or SAP, if you're into acronyms for things you probably don't want to eat. This particular marvel of food science is added to, and I quote, maintain color. Specifically, it prevents the potatoes from turning that unappetizing grayish color after they're cooked, or if they're held for a while before serving. Nobody wants grey fries, that's true, but it's fascinating that we need a chemical compound to ensure our potatoes don't look like, well, potatoes that have been cooked and left to sit for a bit. And it's all about that visual perfection, even if it means adding another multisyllabic ingredient to the mix. And now for a real tongue twister, dimethylpolysiloxane. This is an anti-foaming agent, a form of silicone, believe it or not. It's added to the cooking oil to prevent it from frothing up too much during the frying process. This helps with safety, prolongs the life of the oil, and ensures more consistent cooking. While it's generally recognized as safe in small quantities, it's still a bit jarring to think that an ingredient also found in things like silly putty and aquarium sealants is part of what makes your fries, well, fries. It's the kind of detail that makes you pause mid-bite and think, is this delicious or just an impressive feat of industrial food processing? Perhaps one of the most controversial ingredients, particularly in the past and still in some markets, is natural beef flavor. For years, this was a source of outrage for vegetarians and vegans who were unknowingly consuming animal products. In the US, McDonald's fries were traditionally cooked in a blend that included beef tallow. giving them a distinct flavor. While they switched to vegetable oil in the 1990s due to health concerns, they added natural beef flavor, which can be derived from wheat and milk, but historically could also involve actual beef extract, to try and replicate that original taste. This led to lawsuits and a lot of bad press. Transparency, it seems, wasn't always the special sauce. So why all these additives? Why can't they just be potatoes, oil and salt? The answer, as always, comes down to consistency, cost, appearance, and shelf life on an industrial scale. McDonald's serves billions of fries every year. They need every single fry to look and taste almost exactly the same, whether you're in Boise or Bangkok. These ingredients help achieve that uniformity, extend the usability of their cooking oil, and ensure the fries look appealing under those heat lamps. It's a triumph of food engineering, certainly. But it does make you wonder what we're sacrificing for that perfectly predictable, perfectly golden, perfectly artificial experience. So there you have it. Coca-Cola's early days as a patent medicine with a rather potent kick, and McDonald's fries, those paragons of fast food perfection, are actually a carefully constructed chemical ballet. It's enough to make you want to lie down, isn't it? Or perhaps just reach for a glass of water. Plain, simple, unadulterated water. Though, knowing our luck, we'll soon discover water companies have been secretly adding essence of existential dread to enhance mouthfeel. The point here isn't to send you screaming into the wilderness to live on foraged berries, though if you do, send pictures. It's that these massive brands, the ones that spend literally billions of dollars cultivating images of simplicity or wholesomeness, or just, hey, this won't kill you immediately, often have a rather more complicated story behind the scenes. They rely on us not asking too many questions, not looking too closely at the label, and certainly not digging into their less than sparkling historical resumes. It's the magic trick of modern capitalism. Distract you with the sizzle so you don't question the steak or the 19 ingredients in your French fries. Ultimately, knowledge is power, or at the very least, it's a fantastic way to ruin a perfectly good snack for yourself. But being an informed consumer means you get to make actual choices, not just the ones pre-selected for you by a marketing department staffed by people who probably describe themselves as brand storytellers, unironically. So go forth, be curious, read the ingredients, and maybe, just maybe, start demanding a little more honesty from the giants who feed us. Or don't, what do I know? I'm just a voice on the internet. Now, if you'll excuse me, I suddenly have a craving for something, anything, that has less than 5 syllables in its ingredient list. Good luck with that.